Hello and welcome to today's information session with General Dynamics Mission Systems. My name is Rebecca Davis and I'm the Career Services Manager at Global Campus Career Services Department. We are excited you could join us to learn more about this exciting career opportunity. Before I turn the floor over to Richard from General Dynamics, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. For all those who registered for this afternoon's session, the recording will be emailed to you in a few days. At the end of the presentation, Richard will take time to answer as many questions as he can. At the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A button. You can submit questions with your name or anonymously to be answered live. We also have a large group today, so we will do our best to get to as many questions as we can. However, if your question is not answered by the end of the session, you can email it to us at careerservices@uagc.edu, and we'll follow up with Richard to get any remaining questions answered. Also, feel free to engage in the chat. You can post questions in the chat and members of the University of Arizona Global Campus Career Services team will be available to help answer your questions during the presentation. And then if you have any technical difficulties, we recommend logging out of Zoom and logging back in. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest employer today. We have joining us Richard Moore, Program Manager at General Dynamics Mission Systems. Richard, thank you so much for joining us. I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn the floor over to you.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Rebecca. I greatly appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Richard Moore. I currently manage our military outreach program. I work alongside our diversity and inclusion team. So please don't log off and don't be alarmed if you're not a member of the military community. Primarily, that's who I was brought on board to target. But again, I do work alongside the diversity and inclusion team, so more than glad to help everyone out the best way I can. Some things that I'm going to share with each and every one of you today. To start, a little bit about myself. I've served in 2 branches of the military, 4 years Navy, 2.5 Army. When the game comes on, I never lose a bet. So pretty much for me, I break even, but that's about me and my military career. Since then, over the last 20 years, I had worked towards getting into human resources / recruiting. It took about 7 post my transition. And since then, I've been working in roles such as recruiting, veteran employment representative. I've worked on Marine Corps based Quantico to help transitioning service members. And now in the role that I'm in, I primarily assist the entire military community, which would include transitioning service members, veterans, military caregivers, and military spouses. Again, don't let that run away from you. I've included my information on LinkedIn, so definitely connect with me there, and I can help get you pointed in the right direction. Some things, as I stated earlier, that I'm going to share with everyone today is how to maneuver about the General Dynamics website. We are a large organization. We're broken into 10 independent business units. And I'm going to jump right into this so that this way I can share my screen and show you what I'm referring to, because again, we're so large that it can get somewhat confusing. So first, I'll start with the General Dynamics page. This page will allow us to begin to explore the different sectors of business, the different business units, just to give you an idea of pretty much what they do and what they all entail. So here we'll start with our businesses. And this just gives you a breakdown of General Dynamics, or the actual breakdown. We begin with 4 business sectors: aerospace, marine systems, combat systems, and technologies. Each business sector has 2 to 3 independent business units. So for example, aerospace has Gulfstream Aerospace and Jet Aviation. These 2 business units deal primarily with the building of aircraft. Our marine systems houses the Bath Iron Works, Electric Boat, and GD NASCO business units. Their primary function is building watercraft or ships for the military. Our combat systems business sector holds European land systems, and ordnance and tactical systems, all weaponry. Technologies houses General Dynamics Information Technology. Some of you may know them as GDIT or GDIT, as well as the business unit that I represent, Mission Systems. Granted, we do all things technology. Mission Systems is more along the lines of building and developing satellite communication systems. Now, depending on the positions that you're targeting or your degree, everything that I just said to you could potentially come across as hieroglyphics. I would highly recommend not to focus on, well, I'm not an IT person or I don't have a telecommunications background, because all of our roles have what I like to call supporting roles. So in these specific roles is where you'll find what you're looking for. For example, the most I can tell you about a computer is how to turn it on and turn it off. However, I manage our military outreach program, which doesn't require me to have any type of IT background, any technical background. So again, don't allow that to scare you off. And just to put this out into the atmosphere, General Dynamics, at one point, I believe they still do, have healthcare industry opportunities. What's healthcare about IT other than data entry? I really don't know, but that's the nature of the business that they've decided to get into. And on each of these, you can click one, choose one, and begin to learn more about that specific business unit. Next, I'm going to take you out to the careers portal. And this is where the magic begins. I tell everyone that I come in contact with, there's a home for you here at GD. We just need to find where that home is. As of today, among all 10 business units, or at least 9 of them, we have 3,547 career opportunities. So again, a lot for you to peruse through and to choose from depending on your background. Here, you can search by business unit. All of the business units that have positions are listed here. We also have our locations, which are in alphabetical order by state. We also have our job categories. So if you're looking specifically for IT roles, if you click on IT, you'll have the opportunity to identify close to 1,400 roles in IT, and the same would be for anything else that you decided to choose. If you're looking for roles in supply chain and logistics, you would do the same thing, and you're able to see those roles. Now, sometimes this can get tricky when you go out to different or the independent business units webpage. For example, General Dynamics Mission Systems does not classify roles in supply under supply chain. They list those in procurement. So this is where you'll need to be the subject matter expert in the areas that you're targeting for yourself to have an idea on what those roles are called. This is a little bit dark here. Okay, perfect. So in doing that, you at least want to make sure, again, that you're a subject matter expert in the roles that you're targeting for yourself to get an idea of where you should look, how you can list those roles if they don't come up. For example, I'm a recruiter by trade, but I know that when I'm conducting my searches, recruiter may not be in the title. So with me understanding the area of interest that I'm targeting for myself, I know that I may have to look up talent acquisition to find those roles. And that's pretty much with any role that you want to target for yourself. Some other ways that you can conduct searches would be to conduct just a keyword search. So today I'm going to use Program Manager as an example. And what I'm going to do is utilize my work zip code. And now it appears that we have roughly 912 program manager positions within a 50-mile radius of Fairfax, Virginia. This can be increased up to 200 miles. It can be decreased down to 25, depending on how far you're willing to travel, and in some cases, even relocate. So we'll leave this at 50 miles. This is partly correct, and I say that because when you're conducting your searches, we're just looking for program manager. It doesn't have to be in any specific order. So because I just have program manager, it appears that we would have 912 of those roles within the radius that we've selected. This is, again, partly correct. What the system is looking for is not just program manager together as a title, but it's looking for program and manager. Program to be on line number 1 of the position description. Manager can be on line number 51. So to tighten this up and look specifically for program manager type roles and program manager embedded within the position description, we would do what we call it in human resources a Boolean search. Now, when we go to run the search, that drops to 77, which is a little bit more manageable on the type of roles that you want to target, or those that are program managers. We also have a second option, and I'll clear this out. Some of your position titles are going to have a similar job category in nature. So if we go out and we pull up project and program management and utilize the same zip code, the numbers are pretty much off some or off a lot. And the reason being is because, again, some of our business units do not classify certain opportunities. Oh, sorry about that. We'll put in project and program management. So they really don't classify them as in the what we feel should be the correct job category. So sometimes you may have to run multiple searches. This way you're not missing out on any specific career opportunities for yourself. Next, I'll show you the mission systems page. This is the page that of the business unit that I represent with General Dynamics. And this is how one of the ways that we can get into the to the search page. The search functions are almost one and the same. There are going to be some slight differences. Now, in coming to our page, as of today, we have 529 positions currently available. Once you get to each independent page, the searches are going to be slightly different, but similar in nature. We can do the keyword search, the city, state, and/or zip code, and then we have our job categories. Notice when I indicated that the supply chain would not be listed here, but one of two places that you can actually find those opportunities for supply would be procurement or planning and material control. Our locations, again, are all in alphabetical order by state. Here, you can actually take a look at the positions that are classified as remote or telework with mission systems by clicking on telework. And currently we have 16 specific opportunities, or we can go back out and select varies. And varies is normally going to be closer to the bottom. These are going to be the positions that you would typically classify as remote. Our IT team is actually aware of where it says remote work. If you type in remote work, what I found is that it's still going to pull up positions that have a physical location. Those positions are not dedicated telework opportunities or remote opportunities. So normally, in order for a position to be listed as such, you will see where it says location, it's either going to say telework or it may say varies. Here we also have an additional added feature where you can select the level of clearance that you possess. One of the things that I typically run into is, Richard, a lot of your physicians have clearances. I don't possess a clearance. How do I get a clearance? How do I get sponsored for clearances? Who sponsors the clearance? For the time being, I would say, do not stress yourself out about a clearance. Here's why. We have positions that do not require a security clearance. As of today, we have 99. This number fluctuates depending on our business need. My position doesn't require a security clearance. We have some other positions listed here that do not require that clearance. I recommend, for those of you that do not possess a security clearance, target positions as such. And the reason being basically is because, one, you have to be sponsored for that clearance. 10 times out of 10, if you apply for a position that requires a clearance and people that have that clearance are applying, naturally we look at those candidates first, because what a lot of people don't know about a clearance, if you beat everyone out that's cleared for this role, you cannot begin working in that role until you obtain your clearance from the government. We hold no bearing on how long that takes. On average, it can take up to 2 years. The last clearance that I was granted, I started with my previous organization. I started in my first investigation interview took place January 2018. My clearance wasn't granted until June 2019. I had already started working here. Luckily for me, I didn't need that clearance. But for 2 years, I had a clearance that I didn't use. So this just gives you an idea on potentially how long it can take. And again, that's no bearing on the employer. Once we provide or actually make that offer for that clear position, then the clock starts ticking, the federal government gets involved. I would rather see those of you that don't possess a clearance qualify and apply for positions that don't require a clearance, get on board with an organization, start looking at those opportunities that have a clearance, because then you're working. So it's easier for you to apply for that position. If that position gets offered, we then target or at least begin the process of the clearance, versus we have to wait a year or two. If the government comes back and says, we can't bring you into that role may have been open for 6 months already. A year goes by, hey, Richard, we can't grant the candidate a clearance. So now that's 18 months, no work is getting done in that role. And me as a recruiter, I would have to start that process all over again. So please, just to debunk that myth that all of our positions require a clearance, that's untrue. And you would have to do this on each independent business unit site. Unfortunately, on the General Dynamics site, they don't have that function because not all of the business units require a clearance in a lot of their positions. They may require a public trust, which is totally different than a secret clearance or a higher level clearance. And that also goes for those of you that already possess a clearance. If you possess a secret clearance and you find a position that's a TS or higher, or top secret or higher, the same rules would apply. You wouldn't be able to work in that role until you've actually, the clearance has been granted. So please don't focus much on if you possess a clearance or not, because again, if you don't have a clearance, that's fine. You start with positions that do not require a clearance. If you do have a clearance, target those roles that are at the same level. And then once you get on board, that's when you would look at pretty much for the most part, working your way up. But this just gives you an idea on the different business units, how to identify opportunities for yourself with General Dynamics. And at that point in time, move forward. One of the things that I highly recommend, and I spoke to this before, ensure that when applying to career opportunities, that your resume is tailored as much as it possibly can be. In theory, it's the job markets are competitive. So if you don't do a great job, not just on your resume, but on your application, you can be in for a world of disappointment because you're not qualifying for positions. As recruiters, I know when I was recruiting, I didn't look at each and every application. I had 25 positions on any given day that I was recruiting for. You take into consideration 100 applicants, we're talking 2,500 total across all of my positions. So if I were to take that time, it would take me at least a year to go through those 2,500, not to mention those that are consistently coming in. So some people are going to, not get looked at all. So please make sure that you're qualifying for these positions. When I say qualify, you at least want to be an 80% or higher match to give yourself a fighting chance. The higher you match that specific position, the better. Some ways that you can determine if you meet specific positions, and I'll use this role here, the junior cyber project manager. Basically, everything is laid out in bullet form, which is great. Some things that I like to look at on position descriptions are going to be the basic qualifications, the required skills, and the desired skills. Now, sometimes they'll lay out for you what the task that you'll be performing when you come on board. If you've done those tasks, I don't want you to get in the habit of just listing, I performed these tasks and this is where I performed them, but tell us how you perform those tasks, because that's going to hold weight on, wow, this is how Richard posts his positions in the applicant tracking system. This is how he does his full life cycle recruiting from beginning to end. He performed the tasks that we're going to need him to perform, and this is how he performs those tasks. So definitely take that extra step, and that just gives you a little bit of a competitive edge. Now, in the same breath, I will also say, never try to force fit for a position either. If you're reaching and just thinking someone's going to take a look at my resume, unfortunately, the applicant tracking systems don't work that way. Typically, once you hit apply or submit, it goes into a pool. That applicant tracking system is looking for keywords, key phrases, qualifications. If it doesn't see it, and if that's a position that you're interested in getting into, it's going to be difficult when it comes down between you and the competition. So again, don't try to force fit. Don't overdo it. Take a look at the positions, and again, try to target at least 80% or higher. If you're a 60% match, when I was growing up, that's a D student. No one cared about the D students. They barely cared about the C students. But when they saw those A's, those B and A students, which were 80% or more, people gravitated to those individuals. So please take the time to determine if, in fact, you do qualify. I know that you may be interested in certain positions, interest versus if you can do, because a lot of these positions, they don't have a learning curve that you think they should have. A quick true story with me, one of my positions that I was in, someone was hired that didn't have a clue on what they were doing. I spent for 3 months, half of my work days, 8 hours, bringing this person up to speed for 3 months. Even at the 3-month mark, they weren't getting it. At that point, it was evaluation time. This portion of the evaluation time normally is when we would look at receiving pay increases. I didn't get a pay increase because I was trying to help someone get up to speed. I had talks with my hiring manager, so unfortunately, I left Friday and didn't return back to work because someone else held that in their hands. So I bring this up because, granted, there may be a slight learning curve. If there's 4 things or 5 things or a few things that you don't possess, that can be the difference between you getting selected and offered the position versus not. So don't be alarmed. be prepared for rejection because it can happen. And in some cases, no one will be able to tell you why you were rejected. However, if you're a 60% match or a 70% match, and there are certain things that you don't possess, it's pretty obvious that, okay, I didn't qualify for the position because I didn't have this certification, this level of education, years of experience, this unique skill. So there wouldn't be a need to hone in on that. Pretty much you'll have an idea. Okay, I am going to stop sharing and open the floor for questions. I'll take a look at the chat. And again, fire away, everyone.
I know we had one question. Can you show where to locate the internships? Is there a specific
Yes,
area?
Depending on the internship, we have college and university internships, as well as internships for transitioning service members. Give me a few moments so I can get into that. And it's going to be slightly different for each of the business units. So just keep that in mind when you go out to each business unit's page. A lot of times our pages don't look the same. They don't flow the same. We don't utilize the same applicant tracking systems. And I'll also drop this information in the chat as well. And this will take you to our internships. I'm unfamiliar on when internships become available for college and university students. So definitely you want to keep a close eye on that. There's a few here. Some are paid, some are unpaid. But definitely when you get a chance to, make sure that you take a look at those and you should be pretty much squared away.
Thank you. That's a really popular question.
Perfect, perfect.
Another question that's kind of buried in the chat was someone noticed that some job postings showed salary information, but not all.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason behind that? Can you explain that?
That's solely up to a hiring manager. In theory, I think that's a way to screen people out, because some people feel, well, I need to make this. This is as high as they're going, so I'm not going to target that position. However, I look at offers on employment just like going to a used car lot. You walk on that lot, you just don't walk away. If you really want that vehicle, at some point you negotiate. Never negotiate in the beginning. And I use a very unconventional method. And you can try it, you can use it, you can say, oh, Richard doesn't know what he's talking about, but it's gotten me this far throughout my career. I lowball myself intentionally when I'm speaking with a recruiter. I also lowball myself on the application. Why? If I would have told someone I needed $90K coming into this role, and this role didn't start at $90K, the conversation is ended. We're done, Richard. We can't pay that much. Well, how much can you pay? Don't worry about it. Phone disconnects. Instead, when I was asked that question, I said, well, if you can pay me what I'm making today, and that position is offered, I'll jump ship, no questions asked. The recruiter's response was, oh, yes, Richard, we can do way better than that. Okay, I just created an environment where I'm going to keep the conversation going. And then when the position was offered, I was like, wow, this is great. They want to start me $25K more than what I'm already making. Oh, yeah, I'm jumping ship now. Could I have negotiated? Yes, but I was in the mindset of I don't want to negotiate myself out of a job. So keep that in mind. Nothing is set in stone until that offer is made.
Such great advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quite a few questions coming in through the Q&A. Can you explain what the sponsorship means for a clearance?
Yes, what that means is, let's say if you don't have a clearance, you apply for a position and you're offered a clearance or made an offer for employment, and that position requires a clearance. We as Americans, we can't go out and get that clearance on our own. It has to be sponsored by an organization. So General Dynamics Mission Systems, if we offer you a position today and it requires a clearance, we would have to sponsor that clearance. Because again, we can't go out, fill out an application, say, okay, we'll pay for the investigations, we'll pay for this, we'll pay for that. It doesn't work that way. It has to be sponsored by an organization. So we will sponsor it. And for those of you who served in the military, what I would recommend is get rucksack ready to hurry up and wait, because that's what it's going to be, a wait. And like I said, it took 18 months for the government to come back and say, hey, Richard, we're granting you a secret clearance.
That was on mute. There's a question that came through about felonies. Are you able to apply for positions with General Dynamics if you have a record, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony?
Okay, and that's a great question. And I'm going to respond the way that it was presented to me. Regardless if you have a felony, yes, you can apply. It's going to be up to the powers that be if you move forward. So it's not a disqualifying factor, but depending on the level, especially if it requires a clearance, the federal government is going to do an in-depth background investigation. I had individuals, I live in Virginia, I had individuals that were visited by an investigator in Ohio. So it's not like a local background check. It's detailed. It's done by the federal government. This is going to be on a case-by-case basis. And again, I'm not going to tell you not to apply, but be prepared to answer some questions in the event if these things come up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another great question that came through are, what are the best ways to ensure a resume is tailored at a high percentage for those tracking systems?
The best way to ensure that your resume is tailored is, as I was stating, treat yourself as a subject matter expert. I'm going to share my screen to demonstrate what I'm referring to in reference to making yourself a subject matter expert. This is General Dynamics Mission Systems. 49,004. Okay, I'm going to use this role because this is a role that I can do with my eyes closed. I know it. I've been helping get individuals over to it. So what I'm going to do is, as soon as it opens, demonstrate how to do that. I may have to use another one, but I'll definitely demonstrate that. Okay, so in looking at this position here, let's just say if I had a background in engineering and I understand what staff systems engineers do. When I say tailor, what I want you to consider is utilizing this position description to your advantage. As we start looking at keywords and phrases and reading through this, these are going to jump out at you. So I've never done this before. Like I said, for me, I'm not the most technical person. But if I were to look at this position description, some things that may jump out at me that I want to include on my resume would be support of business development and capture initiatives. Something else that I may want to familiarize myself with or utilize is going to be IRAD planning and execution. Some other things that I may want to include would be experience rocket missile or product defense engineering, and include this section here. Now, to a degree, I wouldn't just do a copy and paste. I would end up putting this on my resume so that it makes sense. I wouldn't, again, copy and paste bullet for bullet, line for line, but what I'm going to do is identify what those key words and key phrases are. For example, I'm a recruiter. I already know that when I look at position descriptions, they're going to discuss or want me to discuss applicant tracking systems, my communication skill, full life cycle recruiting. So these are things that I already know. I'm going to have on my resume, and in tailoring it, if I have 5 positions on my resume and I've done this 5 times, I'm going to list it 5 times in my resume. My resume, if you were to look at it, is oh so repetitive, but I have to demonstrate that, hey, Richard, we need someone that has 8 years of experience. Okay, it's going to show 8 years of experience performing XYZ tasks. So don't think that you just have to put it once and that's it, because I calculate the years of experience. You put it once and you've been in a position for 2 years, you don't have the years of experience. So those are things that when I say tailor, you want to get creative as you can with your resume. Think of your competition and how you can set yourself apart, even more so putting that same information on your application. I believe, and I'm a firm believer, and I stand behind this, applicant tracking systems do not scan resumes. I feel that way because when you read the statement at the end of the application, I hereby certify all information on my application is true and correct. It doesn't say anything about the resume. Therefore, I tailor my resume, copy and paste that information into each appropriate field of the application. Then I'll upload the resume and hit apply. This way, if the resume doesn't get scanned, I'm good. If it does get scanned, I'm even better because now my resume is getting scanned and my application is getting scanned. But for me, I just do that because I want to make sure that I'm hitting all wickets.
Great advice about applicant tracking systems. And for our students and alumni, we do offer a service here in Career Services called Job Scan, where we'll take your resume and a job posting and we'll scan them just to ensure that it is as ATS friendly as possible. So email us at careerservices@uagc.edu if that's something that you're interested in exploring. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but I think we've got time for a couple more questions, if that's okay, Richard.
Oh yeah, I'll stick around afterwards. I'm here for you.
Awesome. We've had a couple questions along the lines of how long is the hiring process usually? And if you're transitioning military, when should you start applying for these positions?
Okay, with the transitioning military, depending on when you transition, I would say at least 120 days from your final day of active duty. Normally, we try to stick to a 90-day period, and that varies based on when the position was open versus the time that we start identifying qualified candidates. Now, keep in mind, if a position has been open for, I'll just use 30 days. Day number 1, we may have 2 qualified candidates. In between that time, no one may qualify. Day 29 and 30, we have a total of 10. So that's the first 30-day mark. Then the following month, we leave that position open. The hiring managers, in turn, now keep in mind with those first 2 sets, they're interviewing. So we leave that position open. So another 30 days, we may get another 10. And then at the end of the month, they may get it. Sometimes some hiring managers only recruit or only interview 1 time a month. Some do it whenever they see fit. Our goal is to at least, in a 90-day period from the time the position posts to the time someone has been identified and an offer made, roughly about a 90-day period. And again, that can vary because you may come in on the tail end or right where what we would consider to be the middle. It may work a little bit faster for you versus me. I applied when the position was first posted, so I may not get the feedback that I'm looking for until we hit that 90-day mark or even a little bit further out. For example, I applied for this position December 2018, mid-December. I normally give companies 30 days. After 30 days, I didn't hear anything. I started applying other positions. I wasn't reached out until the day before Valentine's Day, February 9th, 2019. The following week, I had a face-to-face interview. 2 weeks later, the position was offered. 1 April, I started in my role.
That's great insight. Thank you so much. Another very popular question. We've got I've got one more general question, and then it seems like the other questions that have come in are a little bit more specific.
Okay.
One of the last general questions is, if you're someone that has a lot of experience and is looking to make a career transition, what's the best way to apply for positions with General Dynamics?
Okay. In looking at that question and how it was worded, anyone can apply to anything. When you're making a career change, this is where you need some additional guidance. I recommend getting with your career services, because if you're going from recruiting into IT, really, those two don't match. You're going into a whole new field. So the question is, what type of roles are going to be entry level for me? I've never done anything IT other than turn my computer on, turn it off. I'm going to get a degree in cybersecurity. So Richard, where should I start? I don't have the answers for that, because I don't know if you'll start at entry level cybersecurity. If those roles aren't available, what is for someone to get into cybersecurity? It could be a software engineer, but you don't know if you haven't conducted that research. So without doing that first, or at least having that sit down with career services, you really don't know. And someone like myself, I may say, well, just Google search entry level cybersecurity, but that isn't good enough. I'm not doing you any justice. So that's why I say you want to get other individuals involved. Reach out to your alumni. I'm quite sure they have someone who has gone through some of the same things that you've gone through. Even if you started in recruiting and want to go IT, they may have been a truck driver and went IT. So if they did that, what catapulted you into that IT arena? Where did you start? Well, Richard, I had to start as a help desk analyst, get certified heavy, and work my way up. Or I had to go into this type of role, learn this, and then work my way up. So that would be, my block of advice in reference to those of you who are doing a 180 on your career path.
Yes, absolutely. Reach out to career services. You can email us. I think we posted our email address in the chat, or log into My Career through your student portal to request an appointment and get that scheduled. Just looking through some of these questions in the Q&A.
And I do see some general ones. One that caught my eye: internships available for software developers. They may be. You just have to keep a close eye on the website. Most organizations only post positions based on the need of the business. So sometimes I know, like the one for the talent acquisition, I haven't seen talent acquisition opportunities in a year. People get into certain roles and they just don't leave for whatever reason. I'm in my role. My plan, I'm not leaving until it's time to retire. I'm too old to be still trying to bounce around. So they have me for 20 plus years. So I'm not going anywhere. And you do have certain roles that are like that. However, you just have to keep a close eye on what's out there. Utilize the calendar on your computer and say, okay, on this day, I'm going to search for these specific positions. In corporate America, most of our opportunities they stay posted normally for anywhere between 3 weeks to 45, 60 days, in some cases even more. So you're not going to miss any opportunities if you follow that method. As well as join talent networks. If you join organizational talent networks, like we have a talent network, join it. You'll be made aware of opportunities as they become open.
Can you receive maybe email updates as new positions become available?
Yes, that will be by joining the talent network. So let's say for those of you who are pursuing business development type roles, you would log on to our talent network page, select, and you can do multiple. You can do all positions or the ones that are of interest to you. Every day that a position under that category becomes available with Mission Systems, you'll be made aware of that immediately. Now, the key is when you're looking at an organization like General Dynamics, you would have to go into each business unit and join their talent network. because I don't have access to what goes on in GDIT or any other business unit, and vice versa, because we're all separate. However, we all make up General Dynamics.
And I would say for those that are asking specific questions, what are good positions for my background, or do you have these type of positions? Looking for a job sometimes is a full-time job. And like Richard said, dedicate that time, whether it's I'm going to search for an hour, 3 evenings a week, or 2 hours, 5 evenings a week. Really take that time to look through the job postings and write down the positions that you are qualified for, and keep up with those. It really just takes some time to dig in there and explore all those opportunities. But if you need any help with that, finding out what I can do with my major or what I can do with my experience, don't hesitate to reach out to a career advisor to schedule an appointment as well here at Career Services with UAGC.
And everything that Rebecca said from an employer standpoint is completely true. Before I'm an employer, I'm aspiring to become an employee with any organization. And the one thing that I found was, at one point I was driving myself crazy, staying online all day, looking at jobs, applying for jobs. I really wasn't tailoring my resume. It wasn't until I slowed down a bit. I said, Richard, you have to break your day up. I treated myself as if I was at work. So I gave myself a limit. I started with an hour and a half a day of conducting job searches. But what I did was I did 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at noon, 30 minutes at night. And then as time went on and I understood I can do this quickly and get the same results, I shortened that time. Then I took those minutes that I was using or cutting off and using it somewhere else. Networking is important. I can't express the power of networking. I utilize LinkedIn all day, every day. And the reason being is because there's information that I want to provide to the workforce. So I make sure that I post it there. If you can, it's perfectly fine to request a mentor, because without that mentor, you're going to be out in the wind, just apply, especially for those of you who have gone to, like myself, Career Builder, Monster. Click one button and you'll apply to these 300 positions. No tailored resume. It's stressful. So utilize that time to put yourself in the best light. People don't know that you're seeking employment until you tell them you're seeking employment. So take the time and let people know, hey, I'm in school for XYZ. This is my experience. Does your organization have any opportunities that would fit my skill set? It's okay to ask. Like I said, I'm not a subject matter expert. And of course, I'm going to automatically direct you to our website. The reason being is because when you start getting on these websites, you may find something else of interest that you actually qualify for. But because Richard was focused on just this one thing, I send you one position. There may be 10 other opportunities. So take that time, learn how to conduct your searches. I've given you some ideas on some best ways to conduct your searches. And conduct your searches multiple ways, because sometimes positions may overlap. Sometimes they won't. So you want to get yourself out there and really drive home how you want to apply for your position, and simply be open. Be open and don't be afraid to ask for help. We're here.
Absolutely. And you mentioned connecting with your alumni earlier. We have a great alumni network. We'll post it in the chat. You can, as a student, connect with alumni who work in the field or have a similar major and learn about what they do, what their career path is. Alumni are a great way to network. Also, there was a question about mentors. We have a great mentor network as well here at UAGC called Champs. So if you want, we'll post that information as well. Or If you forget, just email careerservices@uagc.edu and we'll point you in the right direction to our alumni network, to Chance, or to schedule an appointment with a career advisor. Lots of great resources out there. We're definitely here to support you. Any final thoughts, Richard, before we wrap up?
Yes. Basically, be prepared for rejection. I listened to my kids talk last week, and they mentioned a term I had never heard of, and it was called ghosting. And I'm thinking, what in the world is ghosting? It's when we forget about you, in so many words. However, some organizations won't take the time to let you know why you did not qualify for a position. Technically, we already know. If we're applying for a position and it says you must possess and we don't possess it and we get disqualified, there's no need to try to figure out, hey, Richard, can you tell me why I didn't qualify for this position with General Dynamics Mission Systems? Because I'll tell you, of course. Let's look at your resume. Let's look at the position description. And all I look for are yes, no responses. Do you possess this? Yes or no? Do you possess this? Yes or no? I'll ask 5 questions. If most of those are no versus yeses, if we get 1 out of 4 or 0 for 5, you don't qualify. You don't qualify. Now let's take a look at your competition that does have these things. Of course, we want the most qualified candidate. You may or may not be that best qualified candidate. Don't take it personal. Tighten up your bootstraps and keep moving forward. And eventually, and even myself, let's just say if we get connected on LinkedIn, you may find positions with other organizations, and that's perfectly fine. General Dynamics can't hire everyone. What I'll do is I'll help you get introduced to that organization. So what I'm looking for is, hey, Richard, I found a position with Lockheed Martin. It looks like it may be a good fit for me. Okay, fine. Provide me with the position ID number and title, and I can help get you introduced to individuals within that organization. Now, they may be open to that. They may not be. But at that point in time, Richard did everything he could to help. If they don't connect with you, well, I may want to put the brakes on that organization. If they do, fine. Keep that conversation going.
Such great advice. We could probably go for another hour or two, but I'm afraid Zoom might kick us off. Thank you so much, Richard. Richard is such a great supporter of our virtual career fairs as well. So I imagine we might see him at the next one we have, but we'll collate all the questions together that were not answered yet and do our best to get back to you if your question was not answered. And just as we wrap up, I did mention our virtual career fair. Save the date for Wednesday, October 27th. That is our fall virtual career fair. The registration is not available. Just mark it in your calendars, Wednesday, October 27th. Keep an eye on My Career or UAGC Connect for more information and a link to register as it gets closer. And then in a few days, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to this recording and information about General Dynamics Mission Systems. If you have any questions for the University of Arizona Global Campus Career Services on your resume, cover letter, your individualized job search, please email us. Again, that email address is careerservices@uagc.edu or log into My Career through your student portal to schedule an appointment. But Richard, thank you so much for joining us today. We learned so much.
Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.